And the third one, I think, is a little known fact. Credit card companies know that 50% of us won't be able to pay our bills off at the end of the month. In other words, we'll put something on a credit card, but we won't be able to pay off our credit cards at the end of the month.
Welcome to One With the Other Way, a podcast about your journey and finances. I'm your host, James. In today's episode, Wanda, Peggy, and I are having a conversation about credit cards. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Today, I want to make sure we cover three topics when it comes to credit cards. The first thing is generally credit cards are used for short-term loans, and we should really think about limiting it to those type of short-term loans, paying bills, that kind of thing. Second thing is there's a cost of doing business with credit cards always, right? We think about the interest rate and potentially there's some annual costs associated with it. And the third one, I think, is a little known fact. Credit card companies know that 50% of us won't be able to pay our bills off at the end of the month. In other words, we'll put something on a credit card, but we won't be able to pay off our credit cards at the end of the month. So those three things I want to make sure that we emphasize when we're talking about credit cards today.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of good starting point. You had mentioned, 50% of all credit card people have debt. Is that what you said? Or carry credit card debt?
Yeah, 50%
so I guess
of us.
which
50%.
Which 50% do we lie in? Where are you on that spectrum? Are we carrying debt or are we paying off every month?
I actually am surprised that 50%. I really thought that the number of people who don't pay off their credit card every month is greater than 50%. So, hey, at 50%, I think that's good.
That's one in every two, though. That's still a lot of people.
I get that. I get that. But how many people don't have $400 in the bank or $600 for an emergency? I just feel like those are probably the same people. But right. But I mean, we talked about that before, that the statistic on that was also large. So yeah, that's a lot of people. I get it's 1 in 2 that hold credit cards, obviously. But yeah, I'm just surprised. I thought the number would be higher. So anyway.
So I guess like one of the things to think about is how many of us actually do have credit cards versus people who do not have credit cards. Like if you don't have a credit card, right, you're not in that pool of people.
Yeah, but in today's world, it's really one of those things that you have to have. You can't rent a car if you don't have a credit card. And I know that we have debit cards and our debit card has a little Visa symbol, but some companies won't use that as your credit card because it's a debit. I have run into where, no, not debit. You have to have a credit card, or vice versa also, where no, we won't take the credit card. If it's a debit credit card, we'll take it. Yeah. So it's just in this day and age, almost everybody, you kind of have to have a credit card. But let's go back to the points we were trying to make about short-term, using them for short-term things. I don't know if I should say this, but I use it for emergency things too, right? You get a flat tire. You use your credit card, then you pay it off with your emergency fund at the end of the month or whatever, right?
Right. That's an example of a short-term debt.
Yeah.
In our emergency funds discussion, we had mentioned, and I think it was you specifically, Peggy, that brought it up, that a major emergency, as opposed to needing to pay for a flat tire or pay for a hotel, if they're like,
that's true,
you had a natural disaster, those things were short term, within a month, that you could just pay those back off. But if you couldn't get access to your emergency fund right away, you could use a credit card and then use your emergency fund to kind of pay off the credit card. But that's different as opposed to having a credit card as just as your emergency fund. What is worth putting on a credit card as opposed to, like, is this a bigger emergency, for instance?
Oh, I use my credit card to pay for my groceries, and then at the end of the month, I pay it off. So I mean, it depends on what your lifestyle is, right? Some people will not use their credit card except for like, okay, I'm going to use my credit card to buy my vacation stuff, and then I'm going to pay it off and, use that 30-day lag. So I think that it depends on how responsible you're using your card as to what kind of things you should use your card for. Right. But I think that, okay, so you're going shopping, you're going to buy a new couch. Let's just say you're going to buy a new couch, right? To me, if I was going to buy a new couch, I would put on my credit card because I don't know how much I need, right? So does my bank account, have I transferred money, whatever? I don't keep a lot of money in my checking account. So do I need to transfer money? How much? What am I going to spend? What's my budget? Whatever. So I would use my credit card for something like that. And then I pay it at the end of the month. But I mean, I think that what you use your credit card for is going to be different depending on your lifestyle.
So that goes to the point of short-term loans versus paying bills, right? And so I have a flat tire. I got to replace my tire, right? A short-term loan. I know, oh my goodness, that's not a usual thing. And I know that I have my emergency savings. If I'm using it for paying bills, right, I have a regular amount of bills. And I normally spend $100 on groceries. And so I always have, at the end of the month, $400 in there to pay my grocery bill. So this idea of paying bills, which are two different uses when we think about credit cards, right?
Right.
I wanted to address that thing about 50%, right? Because I thought to myself, is the number high? Is the number low? The more interesting part to me is that the credit card companies have you there, right? Because they think one in two of us, they have a 50% chance of making money off of us, by charging us interest. I'm thinking that maybe that statistic is tied to the fact that we have more than one credit card in our purse, right? Or in our wallet. So maybe on the one, right, we might not be carrying a debt, but then on the other, we might be carrying a debt. And so in that 50% of us will carry a debt on a credit card. But if I have 5 credit cards, then I might be carrying a debt on one of them, not on all of them. So that might be where that statistic comes in. You just definitely don't want to be in that 50% that's paying debt because of the cost associated with it. So let's talk a little bit about cost, that second point I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about your couch, right? So let's say, I don't know, we get a couch, right? $2,000, right? Is that fair? I don't know. What did a couch cost me?
I don't know. Last time I bought a couch wasn't that long ago, and it was in a very expensive couch. I think it was under $1,000.
Okay, so for easy math, right? Let's do $1,000, right? Let's do $1,000. If I had $1,000 on a couch, right, and I did not pay it off, then at the end of a year, right, I would be paying $180 of interest on that, right? 18%. Oh, shish kebabs. So that couch that I bought for $1,000, if I don't pay it off by the end of the year, would have cost me $1,180. So that's the cost of the interest accruing. And so you have to be mindful that when you put something on the credit card, you do want to pay it off because the interest rate is pretty high. So that couch is, you paid $1,000 for the couch and you're basically paying $18 a month to rent that couch for the year if you carry that entire balance on your credit cards.
Yeah. Another thing, since we're talking about that, is when you get the 18 months or 24 months of zero interest, we should really caution people about that one.
A big caution. So I have someone who went to one of the furniture stores, right, and got a no interest for 12 months on a piece of furniture. It was $2,000. This individual put $1,000 down. And as long as they paid the $1,000 at the end of the year, then they would pay no interest on this $2,000 couch. At the end of the year, they did not pay off that couch. And at the end of the year, now I don't know if the numbers are right, but it's self-reported. At the end of the year, that interest is charged on the entire balance of that couch, which was $2,000 on that. Not only what she paid, but the whole entire price tag accrued interest from the beginning of the time of the 12 months. Wow. So you have to actually read the fine print because apparently they will also charge you.
They definitely go back and charge you. All of them, I think, will go back and charge you for whatever you had the balance. And it'll be the balance interest from the day you purchased it all the way until the current date. So it's so important to pay off in that amount of time. It's not like they're saying we're going to give you the first 2 years without interest, and then the next whatever time you're going to get this interest. No. If you don't pay it, it goes back to day one and they charge you that interest. So that's a big thing. And I think people need to really be careful of that one.
And actually reading the fine print, right? If you don't make a payment every month, there's probably, I'm thinking,
there might be some other,
there might have been a penalty because you're not paying something every month, right? So $100 or whatever that bill was at the end of every month.
That's true.
That you're actually getting charged for potentially a late fee or a missed payment fee.
It sounds to me that the cost of the credit card isn't just whatever you pay to get the credit card. I guess an opportunity cost almost to decisions that you would make with a credit card. What are you going to buy? Are you spending more than you would have normally if you had it? And I think this will go in getting into more of the rewards credit cards. At what point is it beneficial for someone to have a credit card for, rewards or whatever reasons if they haven't taken into account are they going to be changing their habits because of it?
Okay, so I worked at a major department store in my early 20s. And part of the training to be a sales clerk, just in a regular department, was how to sell a credit card. You will notice that whenever you go into a major department store, they'll say, hey, would you like to have a credit card? We'll knock out 20% off the cost of this merchandise if you get a credit card with us, which you say, hey, that sounds like a great deal. To the department store, right, they're looking at that 50% odds. And in addition, studies show that you will buy 20% more if you buy with a credit card versus if you put it on a debit card or pay cash. In other words, if you think, hey, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy some gifts and I'm going to spend $100, if I have a credit card, studies show that you would spend $120 versus $100 because in your head, you feel like you have more money.
Right. So the answer to the second question is it's not beneficial until you have already mastered how to responsibly use your credit card. So if you're not already paying off your credit card on a monthly basis, you're not already really watching your spending when you're using your credit card, then getting a credit card in order to get rewards is not going to be beneficial to you.
Right. The value.
It's probably going to cost you more money.
Right. The value of those points is way offset by missing just one payment.
Right. I think you kind of look at the credit card company as the house when you go to Vegas.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, right.
The house always wins. Right? Yeah, some people get rich and whatever, but the bottom line is the house always wins. So I think the credit card company is like the house. So if you're not already responsible and you're not already, really on top of your spending, getting a credit card in order to take advantage of points is like paying the house. It could be,
right? But refrain from that word always, because credit cards can be a great tool.
Absolutely.
If you use them responsibly.
Right.
Yes,
it's true. Yeah. So, but the question you asked was when is it beneficial? It's not beneficial until you already know you have control of your own spending, I think.
Oh, right.
Well, I've seen this online, but I guess a definitional sense of what is a credit card person is people talk about, you're a credit card person or you're not a credit card person. I guess it's kind of fitting your definition as, are you someone that's going to pay off your credit card monthly, or are you someone that's going to let a balance sit there and pay off the minimums, here and there, or miss payments every once in a while? And I guess that goes to the question, should only credit card people be buying credit cards? Or should people who aren't good at using credit cards still have credit cards?
That's a good question. So I guess what we're seeing online, you're saying is you're either a credit card person or you're not a credit card person. And a credit card person is that person who pays off their debt every month. And a non-credit card person is that person who does not. So that goes to the point about, can you responsibly use a credit card? But then it goes to one of the points you made earlier, in that in this world, we cannot live without a credit card, or it's at great cost to have a debit card, because if you do a debit card at a hotel or at a car place, they want to make sure that you have the ability to pay for whatever it is you're buying, plus a lot more. I think I wouldn't know for sure, but like $500 extra if I'm renting a car on a debit account and a checking account. They're going to check and make sure you have the balance to pay if there's a problem with the car. In society these days, it seems we can't go out without a credit card. I think then the issue is how to figure out who you are first. And then when figuring out who you are, then decide what you're going to do about that. Because if you're in this, I can't handle a credit card, then you need to take steps so that you can become a credit card person. Is that fair to say?
You're saying taking the steps to becoming a credit card person. What do you think someone should do if they're not already being able to pay off their credit cards and they have maybe at least more than one credit card already? Do they need to cut up some of them? What do you recommend for someone to start that learning process?
Get control of your cash flow.
Oh, no, not the cash flow issue.
Cash flow. I mean, yeah, get control of your cash flow. And yes, if you have multiple credit cards, there might be an issue with your cash flow if you're not paying them. I mean, if you have 3 or 4 credit cards and you're carrying balances on all of them, are you really just playing that rob Peter to pay Paul thing?
That's a hard one, to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's very important, and I hesitate on using that word budget. I like cash flow, right? Because it's an easy come, easy go kind of thing. If you don't have control of your cash flow, if you come in and see us, right, and you have credit card debt, that's an indicator that you don't have control over your cash flow. If you come in and say, hey, I don't spend that much money. This is another famous word. I don't spend that much money. I live very frugally, and yet you have credit card debt. That's an indicator that you don't have a handle on cash flow. And I think actually the very first thing that should happen, and this goes to the financial literacy thing, I think, understanding your cash flow and then adding credit cards to it. Sometimes I think we put the cart before the horse, and especially in colleges, right? They're really advocating, get your credit card because you need your credit history. You don't need a credit history that badly. You need a cash flow understanding first, and then a credit card to enhance your financial life. And so I think that discussion really needs to be part of this financial literacy discussion. Where does the credit card fit into the cash flow?
And I think that we should talk about multiple credit cards and balance transfers. It's an important thing when you have multiple credit cards and you're transferring the balances around. And how is that valued, and when should you be concerned and stop doing it?
Okay, so two things. The first one is balance transfer. If you haven't got a handle on the cash flow, a balance transfer does not help you. Really, to this person who has $1,000, they're paying $18 or $100 on interest. If all you've done is transfer that balance and you haven't fixed the underlying cash flow issue, all you're doing is kicking the can down the road with potential higher interest rates. And the other time that comes into play is debt consolidation. If you're doing a debt consolidation and you haven't addressed the cash flow issue, then you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not taking a candid look at your cash flow to determine how it is that credit cards will fit into your lifestyle. It's an important thing because credit cards are just a piece of who you are. And when we talk about finances for your real life, you have got to get a handle on the cash flow to use credit cards as a tool in your financial life, because credit cards are going to be with you now all the way into your retirement till the day you die. So getting the mastery, I think, is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then the client says, I'm transferring the balance to maintain the interest-free period.
Right. But if they haven't figured out how they got to that place, then even if they transfer it, they don't have the answer to how they got there. If they haven't looked at it and analyzed and figured out how they got there, they haven't gotten an answer. And all they're doing is kicking a can down the road. The interest-free period, again, is great. But at the end of the interest-free period, we spoke about this previously, that interest gets charged to the beginning of the time that money was in that account.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I just, I think that people do that because I can't pay this credit card off. I don't have interest. My interest-free period is coming to an end. And oh my gosh, we all know that's going to be a nightmare. So then they get another credit card and pay that one. And you're right. You're kicking the can down the road. Eventually, you're going to have to pay the debt. The sooner you pay the debt, the better. So you need to get control of your cash flow and start figuring it out and paying on it, even if it's not a lot.
We talked about short-term loan and we talked about paying bills with the credit card. And that third thing that people use is they pull cash off a credit card.
Oh,
I know.
Don't do that.
Don't do that because you're doomed.
I forgot that I could do that actually until you just said it. I'm like, oh yeah. Cash advances on your credit card. Yeah. It's a totally different category.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you pay down on the credit card, they pay that part last because you're paying them more for the cash you borrowed. So if you look at your credit card statement and you've done a cash withdrawal and you have purchases, it'll actually have those in two different buckets.
Yes.
And as you pay down your credit card, it's paying down the bucket that's costing them or costing you less, right? Because they want to make more. So you got to be really careful with cash advances. You're right. Those really can get you.
So just one more time, right? When you take a cash advance off our credit card, which sounds very appealing, hey, $100 to go to the house, they put that into a separate bucket. Your bucket of purchases of goods and services are here. Your bucket of cash flow is over here. When you make your payment, no matter how much you make your payment, unless you pay off credit card in full, that payment goes to this one. And this continues to accrue interest daily until your credit card is completely paid off. It's the last one to be paid for. So it's very important not to do it.
I want to roll back just a slight because we were talking about some, I would say, more on the extremes of bad credit card behavior, maybe. I think let's think about the person that, may already have some pretty good usage of credit cards, or they are maybe would consider themselves a credit card person. How many credit cards should that person have? What is the optimal, put in finger quotes, what is the correct amount of credit cards someone should have?
You should have only the credit cards that you need, and every credit card in your wallet should have a purpose and a reason for you to have it. Otherwise, you don't need it. You don't need it for the fantastic rewards. You don't need it for the points. You don't need it for the cash back. Find the credit cards that you need and only get those. Would you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't see the value of having a bunch of different credit available to you. I mean, why do you need to have those? It's just another thing to keep track of, another bill that's out there, another opportunity to, oh crap, I forgot that I bought that on that credit card, and on paperless statements, and they sent an email and I didn't look at it because I forgot I used it. So I just thought it was a sales thing, but really it was your statement and you owe them money. Now you owe them more money because you didn't pay. And have you ever seen how much they charge you when you're late?
Oh my goodness.
Their late fees are ridiculous.
Yeah. So I want to talk more about credit cards, credit balances, and credit history when we talk about your credit score.
Yeah.
So let's shelf that discussion in terms of how much and how many.
So to summarize, right? If you're going to get a credit card, remember your credit card is for short-term loans, not long-term loans, short-term loans. Try not to carry a balance on there. If you are carrying a balance and you're switching the balance to other cards, you're kicking the can down the road. So you obviously need to get some control of your cash flow. 50% of people carry a balance on their credit card. So you're paying high interest on that. Remember, think of the credit card company as the house in Vegas. They win, right, in the end. So you got to be really responsible with how you use your credit card. And don't think that when you're buying something on your credit card, only buy the thing you need. It's easier for you to buy extra when you're using a credit card because that in your brain, you're thinking, oh, you're going to pay for it later. So be very careful with that. Don't forget, getting a cash advance from your credit card could be very, very costly. The credit card company pays off the purchases of items before they pay off your cash flow, any cash advance. So it's going to cost you a lot to get cash from your credit card. Try never to do that.
Well, thank you so much for listening to One Went the Other Way, a podcast about your journey and finances. Just grateful to have Peggy and Wanda here available to us to discuss this. Hopefully, we'll get out the credit history and your credit scores episode out as soon as we can. If you have any questions or if you want to schedule an appointment with us, you can find us at financesforreallife.com. And we hope to see you in the next episode in 2 weeks. So thanks, guys. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Finances for Real Life, a registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.